Continuing with our focus on the situation with healthcare in the Midwest, and in particular continuing on from yesterday and my conversation with TD's Cathal Crowe and also Joe Cooney about the official announcement by the Health Minister, the acquisition of that 43-acre site in Raheen to help solve the overcrowding crisis. Looks like a new hospital campus will go in there, and there has been strong reaction across County Clare this week after the government confirmed the acquisition of that site in Limerick rather than obviously here in Clare, with the view to developing a new hospital campus aimed at tackling overcrowding in the Midwest. And a new petition is now calling for the land to be acquired for an acute hospital in the Banner County and for accountability from the Health Minister. And the woman behind that campaign, Deirdre Culligan, joins me right now. Deirdre, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, El.
Thanks very much for coming in. You would be, I suppose, better known to people as part of the Friends of NS Hospital group as well, but this is very much a solo venture. So why have you proceeded with this petition, and why by yourself?
I'm from West Clare. Why by myself is our group is supposed to meet with the Minister in the not too distant future, even though no date has been set, and I didn't want to make it awkward for our chairperson to sit across saying that part of that I actually asked for her resignation. Why I feel like when on the interview here on Clare FM where the Minister said that she could see option C being amalgamated into Raheen, I just saw red, and I'm sorry, they have had nearly 20 years to fix what they broke, and here in Clare we've given them every chance, and I saw red. And some people are saying, oh, you're disappointed. You get over disappointed, but you do not get over anger, and anger festers, and I'm angry. And I think what we have been shafted and shunted and put from listening to platitudes for years upon years, oh, this will happen, that will happen, and nothing is coming out of it. And what she did the other day was she gave us, every person, man, woman and child in Clare, the middle finger, and she doesn't care.
Well, let me put this point to you, and it is a point I put to Cathal and Joe yesterday. The fact that the site is about 28 minutes from Ennis has been highlighted, although local estimates suggest it could be closer to 35 minutes or more in traffic. Obviously, you're from West Clare, former Kilrush Town Councillor, and that's a much longer journey. But the point I put to Cathal and Joe is that it's going to be difficult to please everybody with the location of this hospital, no matter where it is. And maybe they looked at it and looked at where the biggest population bases are, and the fact that it is close to Ennis and Nina is being highlighted. What would you say to that?
What I would say to that is, and I'm going to wear my Friends of Ennis Hospital hat on this one, is we gave her every data, and that data came from HSE and ESRI for a case for a hospital in Clare, within Clare, not in Raheen. Raheen is no good whatsoever. And reading this morning in the Examiner, what they're going to do is the emergency department in UHL will be gone when this hospital goes, because it's going to be a Model 4. And
just for people who may not be aware, that's a piece in the Irish Examiner from Niamh Griffin from yesterday, and it quotes Dr. Joe Devlin, a consultant, a member of the UHL Medical Board, who is welcoming the commitment in purchasing the site, but he is quoted as saying, now that we have the site, the focus is now going to shift to what pace services can be opened on the new site and what can be safely opened there. And really the final step in the process, and I'm totally confident this will happen, is the move of critical care and the emergency department to that site. So plans for developing the site we know aren't yet laid out, but Mr. Devlin said if it has its emergency department, then it is a Model 4 hospital. We wouldn't site two emergency departments within 2 kilometres of each other. That makes no sense at all. That will be surprising and perhaps alarming to some people who assume that that's what we're getting is another hospital with another emergency department.
Exactly.
So it sounds like that the ED would be just switching from UHL to this new site.
Exactly, yes.
But even with that, Deirdre, do you think the fact that there will be 2 hospitals, even if only one of them has an ED, the fact that it's an additional hospital will take the pressure off the other hospital? It will make it easier to get healthcare and timely healthcare.
Not for the people of West Clare. I'm sorry. They still have to travel that distance to get care.
I suppose one potential solution that was mentioned yesterday was air ambulance. We know a cross-party meeting with the National Ambulance Service due to take place next week, and they'll be talking about additional ambulance services for Clare. During that cross-party meeting, a call will be made for an air ambulance base to be developed in West Clare. Would that be sufficient, or at least help in some regard, if, as looks all but likely, this new hospital is going to be in Raheen, next to UHL?
It would help, but okay, let's have the scenario that you have a cardiac patient back in Luped, and then you have another one in Doolin, and you have another one in Kilrush. Which goes where? Where does their ambulance go? Like, there's only one of them.
And that's the thing, I suppose. It depends if there is just one air ambulance.
And the other side of it is the ambulance service is brilliant. It's stretched, and we all know it's stretched. But if you're back in Kilbaha and you have a cardiac arrest, or you have an accident or a fall, anything like that, you have to wait for the ambulance to get to you. And like, that's adding to the time of you going to UHL. So if you wait for 45 minutes for the ambulance to get back to Kilbaha, it's an hour and 45 minutes from Kilbaha to UHL. Like,
another potential solution, or something that would have helped, is enhanced services at Ennis Hospital. And Minister Carol McNeill, has promised enhancements for Ennis Hospital, but she gave no commitment to restoring an emergency department there. Disappointing to hear that?
Yes. Very disappointing, because she hasn't said what services are being enhanced. She's given no detail. She's just it seems to be very flippant when it comes to whatever the services in Clare. I actually think she just doesn't. It's like Clare doesn't exist, and I've often said before that if Clare went off out into the Atlantic, the government would love it. But we aren't. We're here, and we're all voters. Like,
she did make the point that Clare was very much central to the thought process in this, but obviously you disagree with that vehemently.
I do not believe that for 1 minute. If she did, the data we gave her would have come into play big time.
You see this as potentially a resigning matter for the minister, which I'm sure if she were here she'd absolutely refute and would say, OK, this hospital is quite some distance from people in West Clare, but she may well point to that argument of it has to be located somewhere, and they looked at where the biggest population base is, where it is an additional service. It will help healthcare. It'll be beneficial to healthcare in the Midwest, and it is the Midwest region, not just Clare. But you still feel that this is a resigning matter, because I'm sure those are some of the many arguments she would use to defend herself.
This is the most controversial decision she has made so far in her career, and this is probably the one. This is probably the rock that she'll perish on.
You believe that?
I believe that very, very strongly. I believe that.
She has said this Raheen side is a strategic investment for the Midwest health system over the next 30 years. So she very much sees this as going to be beneficial for decades to come. But you believe that plan fails to address the needs of this county? Exactly,
it does.
So where do you go from here then, Deirdre? You've set up this petition. How is it going so far?
The last time I looked, there was over 400 signatures on it. It's building. People are sharing it, which is brilliant. People are contributing, which I don't like. I think you
did highlight this is on change.org, this petition to
they normally ask you to contribute something. I prefer if you just share it. That works in our benefit more, sharing it. Verify your email, your signature by email. That makes it count. A lot of people forget that step, which is vital. Okay. But it's building and it's progressing nicely as far as I'm concerned.
I do have to finish by asking you how successful you think it's going to be, given this site in Raheen has been purchased. It looks like this is the path, this is the trajectory that they're taking. It will be a hospital in Limerick. The HSE, the government, the Department of Health, they're not going to, I would imagine, find additional money to help contribute to a site for a hospital in Clare. So how realistic is this petition in terms of achieving its aims? Would it not be better to focus on trying to push for better air ambulance services and better enhancements and an ED in Ennis Hospital than pursuing this route?
Where's the ED in Ennis Hospital? You can't have an ED in Ennis Hospital. That's already been proven. Right? The other side is if there's a will, there's a way. She'll find the money. Right? She's not, I know in my heart and soul, she's not going to backtrack.
But are they really going to do that? If they're building a hospital for the Midwest, they're not going to build another one in Clare as well.
But options.
They'll have two in Limerick that are for the Midwest. They won't build another one in Clare.
You can be negative about it if you want to. I prefer to
I'm
be
not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to be realistic.
Be realistic as well. Probably not. But you know something? It's about time, Clare, where Clare people stood up and said enough is enough. We have listened to your platitudes for the last 20 years, telling us first that Ennis needed to be downgraded, and he went ahead with it, even though there was proof that we have an international airport right on our doorstep, and it was the National Emergency Plan that said you had to have a fully operational 24-hour A&E within a certain radius of that international airport, and UHL was outside it. Okay. And guess what? Raheen is further outside it. And
listener Phil McMahon has texted in 086 1800 964 to say, with heavy traffic on the Kilrush Road nowadays, it would take a lot longer to get to UHL than 1 hour. Deirdre, thank you very much for being with us. Deirdre Culligan there behind this petition demanding the immediate acquisition of land for a hospital in Clare. For more reaction to this, we're joined by another West Clare resident, Cillian Murphy. Cillian, good morning to you.
Morning, Alan. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I suspect perhaps you're of a similar mind, or certainly, if not, you've been speaking to many people in Kilkee and in West Clare who feel like Deirdre does. What are your own thoughts on the announcement of this acquisition of this site in Raheen and what it potentially means for people in Clare, and in particular West and North Clare?
I think there's, in real terms, Alan, personally, and I know Deirdre didn't like the word disappointed, but that's what I am. I was a former councillor, as you know. I was on the health forum, would have pulled together an awful lot of questions and data, I suppose, that would have been used by the likes of Friends of Ennis Hospital with regards to making their case with regard for a hospital with an ED in Clare. And so, I do know, I have a fair bit of knowledge at the background of what has gone on. And I suppose, look, personally, I've personal experience of needing the ambulance service, of needing to be brought to the ED in UHL. And it's not a pleasant experience when you live in West Clare. On the other hand, I think there's a lot of people and certainly people I've spoken to yesterday were saying, 15 years ago, there was a very poor decision made. Very little has happened in the interim. I am full credit to the elected reps that made the HICWA review happen, the Friends of Ennis Hospital, the Midwest Hospital campaign. All of those have pushed really hard for the HICWA review, because we've listened for donkey's years that the need for an ED in Ennis was not there because there was the clinical clinical advice didn't support it. And, I was trying to pull the dates together. September 25, that was published. It was set up in 24, published in 25. And I think full credit, because that is a critical document in all of this, because underlined in this was a risk to patient safety. And I think that is the kind of the one line in the entire book that said that this cannot be ignored anymore. This was the clinical advice that everyone had been looking for 15 years, and it was there in black and white on a piece of paper by HICWA. And of course, the decision as to what to do, the options, are well discussed and well debated. And I think, I'm disappointed this is not on the Clare side of the border. I suppose we would have been much happier if this was, somewhere out the Coona side or headed for Fergus, somewhere along those lines.
And can I put that point to you, Cillian, that the Deirdre was highlighting Dr. Joe Devlin being quoted in the Examiner saying that it looks, from his viewpoint, that the ED would move from UHL to this new hospital. He says we wouldn't site 2 emergency departments within 2 kilometres of each other. That makes no sense at all. So I'm sure an additional hospital will be beneficial, but if it's moving one ED from the other to the other rather than opening an additional one, just how beneficial is it going to be?
Look, I mean, I'd say there's plenty of examples of 2 EDs within 2 kilometres or close enough to within each other if you go all over the world. I'm not, look, I'm not an expert in the siting of emergency departments, but I suspect that closing one to open another it's not going to be as clean cut as that. It's not going to be shut the door, open the door. I would imagine, and I know there's going to be a massive transfer of services that's going to happen in this project.
I'm sure it wouldn't be, close the door in one ED, immediately open the doors in the other, but it would happen over time. But ultimately, it sounds potentially like at some point there will just be one emergency department.
I mean, Alan, with the best will in the world, none of us know what's going to happen, and Mr. Devlin included. There's a long road to happen here. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there with the expertise that will say what could, should, or will happen. I think what we need to look at now, and the most important piece now, is that there is a very organised, cohesive approach to, this decision isn't going to be unwound. They're not going to go back tomorrow morning or next week and say, we're taking back the money, we're not buying that site, and we're going to go looking for another one.
Yeah.
So we have to take the approach that says, what do we need to do here in Clare? And for that to happen, everybody needs to work together. That's Friends of Venice Hospital, cross-party elected reps, bringing in the ambulance service, bringing in the regional executive office of, Sandra Broderick's office, so that there is a proper discussion about what are those services that the Minister sees should be transferred out to Ennis, that we then, as a community, all of us, can pick up and start to push for those things to be transferred. Where is the investment going to happen in Clare? I would see on a weekly basis huge amounts of people that cannot leave UHL because there is no nursing home beds for them to move on to. And that is a profound blockage in the system. It's not the be all and end all of it, but it is a very single and singular blockage that's there in the system that needs to be unpacked. And if there's a talk about investment in services, we need to have a big wider view on those. I do think that we're going to see. You referred to it yourself. There's a cross-party group meet with the National Ambulance Service next week. Is an air ambulance top of the list there? I would suspect strongly it will form part of the conversation. But what personally I would prefer to see is investment in the bases in Ennistimon and Kilrush, extra resources, extra vehicles, so that when an ambulance leaves West Clare with one of those heart attack patients that Deirdre spoke about earlier, we're not waiting for 4 hours or 3 hours for another ambulance to replace it. Yeah,
because the example Deirdre gave is not beyond possibility that you could have a couple of serious incidents in a similar time period.
And we've had them, Alan.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of incidences where there have been a couple of incidences at a time, and people have had to wait very long periods of time. Very serious incidents have had to wait a long time for an ambulance.
Okay, Cillian, I do have to finish now, but just final word for me on this. Do you feel that's the most realistic route to go down? Push for better air ambulance services, particularly bases in West Clare, and just push. The Minister did mention enhanced services at Ennis Hospital. Find out what exactly those are and whether they will be to any degree satisfactory.
Look, one of the things, and when I was in Health Forum, this is something I kept pushing for as well. We need to expand the services that can go into the injuries unit, into the medical assessment unit. We need to change the protocols within the ambulance service to allow the ambulances to drop people to the injuries unit. At the minute, they're not allowed to do so. We can't have that. These are the things that will unpick the blockages that are in the system. Allowing more ambulances in the periphery of the county, a better service, better basis, and a protocol that allows them to use Ennis better, expanded times, expanded range of services to be brought in there. I think if we can start at that base, I'm not minimising the frustrations out there with the decision. But I think there are things we can focus on now as a community to push and make sure that we don't suffer more as a consequence.
Okay, I do have to leave there, Cillian. Really appreciate your time on this. Cillian Murphy there with us, and also thanks to Deirdre Culligan, who was with us.